Please leave me alone. Let me live my life.
She thought hiding in plain sight would keep her safe. Working double shifts, belly swollen with his child, surviving on scraps and silence. Then he walked in. Dante Chen, Seoul's most ruthless crime lord. The husband she'd fled from 6 months ago. Their eyes locked across the crowded club, and she knew her carefully constructed invisibility had just shattered. What he didn't know yet was that the baby she carried was his. What she didn't know was that his mother had orchestrated their entire separation with lies that would make the devil blush. And when the truth finally exploded between them, nothing in Seoul would ever be the same again. Stay tuned because this story will wreck you in the best way possible. Welcome back to K Fairy Tales, fam. Stick around till the end because this ride is about to get wild. Trust me, your emotions aren't ready. The bass from Club Mirage rattled through Zuri's ribcage as she balanced a tray of overpriced champagne. 6 months pregnant and her feet screamed with every step, but the tips here were better than anywhere else that would hire someone without papers. Her manager didn't ask questions. She didn't give answers. That's how survival worked in Seoul's underbelly. She'd perfected the art of being invisible. Head down, smile plastic, moving through the VIP section like smoke. There, but not there. The uniform was too tight across her growing belly, but she'd learned to angle her body, to carry trays that hid the swell, to disappear into corners when the contractions that weren't quite contractions made her vision blur. Tonight should have been like any other night. Serve drinks, dodge grabbing hands, collect cash, go home to her shoebox apartment in Itaewon, and cry herself to sleep with one hand on her stomach. Whisper apologies to the baby who deserved so much better than a mother on the run. Then the energy in the room shifted. She felt him before she saw him. That electric charge that had always existed between them, the way her body recognized his presence before her mind could process it. Her hands tightened on the tray, champagne flutes trembling. Dante Chen entered the VIP section like he owned it. Because he did. He owned half of Seoul, and the other half paid him tribute. Dressed in all black, tailored suit that probably cost more than she'd make in a year, he moved with the lethal grace of a panther. Women turned to stare, men stepped aside instinctively, and behind him, draped on his arm like expensive jewelry, was her. Min-ah Park, daughter of Seoul's elite, everything Zuri could never be. Tall, pale, perfect. The kind of woman who belonged in Dante's world. Zuri turned, ready to bolt for the back room, but her manager appeared, gripping her elbow with bruising force. Table 7, now. They requested you specifically. Her blood turned to ice. I can't. You will unless you want to walk out of here. Unemployed and blacklisted from every establishment in Gangnam. His smile was all threat. Mr. Chen doesn't like to be kept waiting. Each step toward table 7 felt like walking to her execution. Her heart hammered so hard she thought her ribs might crack. The baby kicked, sensing her panic, and she pressed one hand to her belly, trying to soothe them both. She reached the table, forced herself to look up. Dante's eyes were already on her. For 3 endless seconds, the world stopped. She watched recognition slam into him, watched his expression cycle through shock, confusion, and something darker. Possessiveness, rage, need. His companion said something, her voice high and irritating, but he didn't respond. Couldn't. His entire focus had narrowed to the woman standing before him, pregnant and trembling and more beautiful than anything he'd seen in 6 months of searching. You, he breathed, and the single word carried enough weight to crush continents. Your drinks, sir. Zuri's voice came out steady somehow. She set the champagne down with hands that only shook slightly. Is there anything else? His hand shot out, gripping her wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to make his point. The touch sent electricity up her arm, muscle memory of all the times those hands had worshipped her body. How far along? His voice was deadly calm, the kind of calm that came before executions. I don't know what you're talking about. Zuri. Her name on his tongue after 6 months of silence made her knees weak. How? Far? Along? Dante, who is this? Minna's voice cut through the tension like nails on glass. Why are you holding some waitress's hand? 7 months, Zuri whispered, hating how her voice cracked. Please let me go. 7 months. He did the math instantly. She watched it happen, watched his eyes drop to her belly, then snap back to her face. Impossible. You left. You filed for divorce. Your mother made it very clear what you wanted. Tears threatened, but she swallowed them down. I'm just trying to survive. Please, I need this job. My mother? Something dangerous flickered across his face. What did she say? It doesn't matter now. She tried to pull away, but his grip tightened fractionally. Min-ah was saying something sharp in Korean, her perfectly manicured hand on Dante's shoulder, trying to redirect his attention. The other club patrons were starting to stare, whispers spreading like wildfire. Sir, you're causing a scene. The manager appeared, his face pale with fear. Everyone in Seoul knew Dante Chen's reputation. Miss Adeyemi, get back to work. She's done working here. Dante stood, his 6-foot frame towering over everyone. Effective immediately. You can't just... Zuri started. Watch me. He pulled out his phone, made one call, spoke in rapid Korean. When he hung up, his attention returned to the manager. Consider this place under new ownership as of 5 minutes ago. You're fired. The rest of the staff gets proper contracts and living wages starting tomorrow. Security will escort you out. Dante, what are you doing? Minah's voice rose shrilly. We're supposed to be having dinner. Plans changed. He didn't even look at her, his eyes never leaving Zuri's face. My driver will take you home. Apologize for the inconvenience. Inconvenience? You're humiliating me in public for some pregnant nobody? Careful. The word was soft but carried enough menace to make Minah step back. That's my wife you're insulting. Ex-wife, Zuri interjected desperately. We're divorced, remember? You moved on. I moved on. There's nothing left between us. We'll discuss the validity of that divorce later. His hand moved to the small of her back, proprietary and protective. Right now, you're exhausted, pregnant, and clearly haven't eaten properly in weeks. We're leaving. I'm not going anywhere with you. Yes, you are. His voice dropped lower, intimate despite the public setting. Because you're swaying on your feet, because your manager just got fired for exploiting you, and because carrying my child while working yourself into the ground ends tonight. Argue later. Let me help you now. She wanted to fight, to maintain her independence, to prove she didn't need him, but her feet were bleeding in cheap heels, her back ached so badly she could barely stand, and the baby was doing gymnastics against her ribcage. She was so tired of struggling alone. Fine, she whispered. But this doesn't mean anything. We'll see about that. His car was waiting outside, a black Bentley with windows so tinted they looked like voids. He helped her inside with unexpected gentleness, his hand supporting her elbow, careful of her swollen belly. The interior smelled like leather and his cologne, bringing back memories she'd tried so hard to bury. They drove in silence through Seoul's neon-soaked streets. Zuri kept her face turned to the window, watching the city blur past. She could feel his eyes on her, heavy and searching. Where have you been? His voice finally broke the quiet. I searched everywhere. Private investigators, police contacts, every favor I could call in. You vanished like you never existed. That was the point. Why? The single word carried 6 months of pain. We had problems, yes. My work was demanding. But you were my wife, Zuri. You don't just leave without a word. Your mother told me you wanted me gone. The words burst out before she could stop them. She said I was an embarrassment, that you'd been seeing other women like Minah, who actually fit into your world. She had divorce papers with your signature. She paid me money to disappear quietly, said if I really loved you, I'd let you go. The car swerved slightly as Dante's hands clenched the steering wheel. She said what? She showed me photos. You with other women at galas, business dinners, charity events, all perfectly respectable Korean women from good families. She said you were too polite to tell me yourself that I'd been a mistake. I never signed divorce papers. His voice shook with barely controlled fury. I refused. Told her I'd die before I let you go. She forged my signature, filed them without my knowledge. Zuri's head snapped toward him. What? I came home one day and everything you owned was gone. Your clothes, your art supplies, The ridiculous collection of succulents you insisted on keeping by every window. Just gone. His jaw clenched. My mother claimed she had no idea where you went, cried about how she'd tried to convince you to stay but you were determined to leave. And like an idiot, I believed her initial story before I started investigating and realized nothing added up. She lied to both of us, Zuri whispered, the realization settling over her like lead. She manipulated us both because she's a classist, racist woman who thinks being Korean is the only rated thing that matters. Dante pulled into an underground garage, his movements sharp with rage. She'll pay for it. But first, we deal with you, with us, with our child. The penthouse was exactly as she remembered. Modern, minimalist, expensive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline. But things were different now. Her paintings still hung on the walls. Her books were still organized by color on the shelves. The succulent collection she'd started had grown, clearly maintained with care. You kept everything, she said, emotion clogging her throat. Of course. He shrugged off his jacket, loosened his tie. You're my wife. Why would I get rid of your things? Because you thought I left you. I knew you'd come back. His eyes found hers. Or I'd find you. Either way, this was always your home. She wanted to argue, to point out all the ways this couldn't work. Instead, exhaustion crashed over her in waves. Her knees buckled, and suddenly he was there, catching her before she fell. When did you last eat? He demanded, guiding her to the couch. This morning, maybe. Maybe. Fury and concern warred across his face. Zuri, you're 7 months pregnant. You should be eating constantly. Hard to afford food when rent takes everything and tips are barely enough for utilities. She hated how defensive she sounded. I was doing the best I could. Your best shouldn't have to be starving. He disappeared into the kitchen, returning with water, fruit, cheese, crackers. Eat. All of it. We'll order proper food after. She ate because her stomach was eating itself, because the baby needed nutrients, because fighting felt like too much effort. He watched her with an intensity that made her skin prickle, his jaw tight with emotion he was clearly struggling to contain. I looked for you, he said quietly. Every day. Tore this city apart. Had people checking hospitals, shelters, immigration records. Nothing. You'd completely disappeared. I worked in Hongdae for a while. Cash jobs, nothing official, stayed with other immigrants who didn't ask questions. She took a long drink of water. When I ran out of money, I took the club job. Better pay, no paperwork required. You've been living like that for 6 months? Pregnant? Alone? His hands clenched into fists. While I've been, he stopped, clearly editing whatever he'd been about to say. While you've been with women like Minna? She couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. Minna means nothing. She's a business arrangement my mother set up. I've been on exactly 3 dinners with her, all public, all political. His eyes burned into hers. There hasn't been anyone else, Zuri. Not in 6 months. Not ever. You're it for me. That's not what your mother said. My mother is a liar who will be cut from my life permanently. He moved closer, stopping just short of touching her. I need you to understand something. The divorce papers were forged. You're still legally my wife. You've always been my wife. And that baby, his eyes dropped to her stomach. That's my child. Mine. Which means you don't work yourself to exhaustion anymore. You don't struggle. You don't suffer. That ends tonight. You can't just decide I already have. He pulled out his phone, made several rapid calls in Korean. By the time he finished, he'd arranged for a doctor to come first thing in the morning, ordered enough food for a week, and apparently hired a nutritionist. This is insane, Zuri protested weakly. This is me taking care of what's mine. He crouched in front of her, careful not to invade her space. I failed you once. Let you believe my mother's lies. Let you leave. Let you suffer for 6 months. That doesn't happen again. Dante, please. The word cost him. Please, Zuri, let me do this. Let me fix what I should have protected in the first place. She looked into his eyes and saw genuine emotion there. Not manipulation. Not control. Just raw need to make things right. Okay, she whispered. But I'm not promising anything beyond tonight. Tonight is a start. He showed her to the master bedroom, their bedroom, where everything was exactly as she'd left it. He'd even kept her side of the closet full of her clothes, laundered and organized like she might return any moment. "Get some rest," he said from the doorway. "Real rest, in a real bed. Tomorrow we see the doctor. Make sure you and the baby are healthy. Then we figure out everything else. Where will you sleep?" "Guest room." "I'm not assuming anything." But his eyes lingered on her with such longing it made her chest ache. "Call me if you need anything. I'll be listening." After he left, Zuri sank into the mattress and finally let herself cry. 6 months of pain, fear, and loneliness poured out in silent sobs. She cried for the marriage she'd thought was broken, for the lies that had nearly destroyed them, for the baby who'd been growing while she struggled alone. When she finally fell asleep, it was the deepest sleep she'd had in months. The next morning, Zuri woke to sunlight and the smell of food. She found Dante in the kitchen, attempting to cook what looked like pancakes and failing spectacularly. "You can't cook?" she said from the doorway. "I'm learning." He flipped a pancake. It landed half on the pan, half on the stove. "How do you feel?" "Better than I have in months." She touched her belly. "The baby's been quiet. Usually they're kicking by now." Concern flashed across his face. "Is that normal?" "I think they're just comfortable, but the doctor should probably check. She'll be here in an hour." He abandoned the pancakes, crossing to her. "Zuri, I need to ask, did you want this baby, or did you consider—" "No," she cut him off firmly. "I never considered that. This baby is mine, ours. Even when I thought you didn't want us, I wanted them." Relief flooded his features. "Good, because I want them too. So much it terrifies me." The doctor's visit confirmed everything was fine. The baby was healthy, right on track developmentally. Zuri was malnourished and exhausted, but nothing that proper care couldn't fix. "You've been very lucky," Dr. Kim said seriously. "Another month of this stress, and we could have been looking at serious complications. But the baby is resilient, like their mother, I think." After the doctor left, Dante turned to Zuri with an intensity that made her breath catch. "We need to discuss us. There is no us. The divorce was never legal." He pulled out a folder, showed her documents. "I had my lawyers investigate. My signature was forged. The filing was done without proper notification. Legally, we're still married." "That's not possible." "It's absolutely possible when your mother has enough money to bribe corrupt officials." His eyes burned into hers. "You're my wife, Zuri. You never stopped being my wife. You can't just decide that." "I'm not deciding anything. I'm stating facts." He moved closer. "And here's another fact. I love you. I never stopped loving you. Every day you were gone felt like dying slowly. And now you're here, pregnant with our child, and I'm supposed to pretend I don't want to fall to my knees and beg you to stay. I know I have to earn your trust back. I know my mother did damage that can't be fixed with pretty words. But Zuri, you're it for me. You always have been. And I'll spend the rest of my life proving it if that's what it takes." Before she could respond, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered out of habit. "Did you really think you could hide forever?" Minna's voice dripped poison. "Did you think Dante would choose you over someone suitable? You're nothing but a temporary embarrassment he'll tire of eventually. And that baby you're carrying? I'll make sure it never has a place in this family." Zuri hung up, hands shaking. "Who was that?" Dante demanded. "No one. It doesn't matter." "Zuri." He cupped her face, forcing her to look at him. "Tell me." So she did, and watched his expression transform from concern to pure rage. "Stay here," he ordered, already reaching for his phone. "Where are you going?" "To handle this, permanently." He was gone before she could argue, leaving her alone in the penthouse with her spinning thoughts and kicking baby. 3 hours later, Dante returned, looking exhausted but satisfied. Minna's threats had been dealt with, her family's business dealings with his organization permanently severed, and she'd signed an ironclad NDA that would ruin her if she ever spoke about Zuri or their child again. "It's done," he said simply. "She'll never bother you again. You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." He crossed to her, his hands framing her face with infinite gentleness. "No one threatens my family. No one. Not business rivals, not society women, not even my own mother. About your Fina, Mother, she's cut off, financially, socially, from my business. She manipulated us both, nearly destroyed our marriage, and let you suffer while pregnant. His voice was ice. She made her choice. Now she lives with it. Dante, she's still your mother, and you're still my wife, my priority, always. He pulled her against him, careful of her belly. I choose you, Zuri. Every time, in every way, forever. She wanted to stay angry, to protect herself from more hurt, but standing in his arms, feeling safe for the first time in months, she felt her walls crumbling. I'm scared, she admitted against his chest. Of me? Of believing this is real, of letting myself need you again and having it fall apart. Then let me prove it's real. He tilted her face up to his. Move back in, officially. Let me take care of you and our baby. Let me show you every single day that you're my world. And if your mother tries something else, she won't. But if she does, she'll discover exactly how ruthless I can be when someone threatens what's mine. The possessiveness should have bothered her. Instead, it made her feel cherished, wanted, protected. Okay, she whispered, but I have conditions. Name them. I'm not giving up my independence. Once the baby comes, I'm going back to work. My art, my career, all of it. Agreed. I'll fund your studio. Best materials, best location, whatever you need. I'm not taking your charity. It's not charity. It's an investment in my wife's talent. He smiled slightly. Also non-negotiable. You're impossible. You love that about me. He wasn't wrong. What else? No more secrets. About your business, your family, anything that might affect us. Complete honesty. Deal. And I have a condition of my own. What? Marry me again. At her shocked expression, he continued. A real wedding this time. Not the rushed ceremony my mother forced. Something real, with your family there, your friends. I want to marry you again with no doubts, no lies, nothing but us choosing each other. That's insane, excessive. His eyes held hers. Zuri, I let you believe I didn't want you. Let you struggle alone while pregnant with my child. The least I can do is make sure the entire world knows you're mine, and I'm yours. Properly this time. You're really serious about this. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. She looked at this man who'd torn soul apart searching for her, who'd cut off his own mother for manipulating them, who looked at her pregnant belly like it contained the universe. Ask me properly, she said softly. He dropped to one knee right there, his hands gentle on her belly. Zuri Adeyemi, love of my life, mother of my child, woman who makes me want to be better than I am, will you marry me? Again? For real this time? Will you build a life with me, raise our baby together, and let me spend every day proving I'm worthy of you? You're already worthy. She touched his face. You always were. I just couldn't see it through your mother's lies. Is that a yes? It's a yes. He stood, pulling her into a kiss that tasted like second chances and new beginnings. The baby kicked between them as if celebrating, and they both laughed. She's active, Dante said, his hands spanning Zuri's belly with wonder. How do you know it's a she? Call it intuition. He looked at her with such tenderness it stole her breath. Do you know? I didn't want to find out alone, she admitted. Wanted to wait until I wasn't alone anymore. You're never going to be alone again. He pulled out his phone. Dr. Kim, we want to know. Can you tell us the gender from this morning's ultrasound? He put it on speaker. Doctor, Kim's warm voice filled the penthouse. Congratulations, you're having a girl. Dante's face transformed completely. Wonder, joy, fierce protectiveness, all at once. A daughter. His voice broke. We're having a daughter. Zuri found herself crying, overwhelmed by seeing him like this, by the reality of their daughter becoming real. A girl. He dropped to his knees, pressing kisses to her belly through her shirt. Hi, little one. I'm your appa. I'm going to spoil you terribly and probably be the most overprotective father in Seoul, but I promise I'll always keep you and your Iyama safe. Always. The next 2 months passed in a blur of preparation. Dante threw himself into creating the perfect nursery with an intensity that bordered on obsession. He researched cribs, tested car seats personally, and somehow ended up with enough baby clothes to open a boutique. "This is excessive," Zuri protested, looking at the mountain of tiny dresses. "Our daughter deserves options." He held up a onesie that said Daddy's Princess in Korean and English. "Besides, look how cute this is. You're hopeless. I'm in love." He pulled her into his arms, careful of her massive belly. "With you, with her, with this life, we're building." Her art studio opened 2 weeks before her due date. Dante had commissioned a space in Hongdae, all natural light and high ceilings, close enough to the penthouse that she could walk there, but far enough to maintain independence. Her first collection was already getting buzz, pieces that explored identity and belonging, the complexity of being African in Asia. "You're brilliant," Dante said, studying her latest painting. "This is going to make waves. You're biased. I'm honest." He kissed her temple. "The art world won't know what hit them." Everything was falling into place, too perfectly, almost, like the universe was making up for the 6 months of hell. Then Zuri's water broke at 3 a.m., 2 weeks early. Okay, don't panic." Dante was absolutely panicking, running around their bedroom like his hair was on fire. "Hospital bag? Where's the hospital bag? I had it right here. Why is nothing where it should be? Oh God, we're having a baby. We're actually having a baby right now. Dante." Zuri gripped his arm through a contraction. "Breathe. You practiced this." That was theoretical. His eyes were wild. "This is real. Our daughter is coming. What if I drop her? What if I mess up? What if you get me to the hospital before I have her in the car?" That snapped him back to focus. Within minutes, they were in the Bentley, speeding through pre-dawn Seoul. Dante held her hand through every contraction, his knuckles white with tension. Labor was long, brutal, 18 hours of pain that made Zuri question every decision that led to this moment. But every time she wanted to give up, Dante was there. "You're the strongest person I know," he whispered in her ear during a particularly vicious contraction. "You survived my mother's manipulation. You survived 6 months alone. You can survive this. You can do anything." When their daughter finally arrived at 9:17 p.m., screaming her displeasure at being evicted from her warm home, the world stopped. The nurse placed the baby on Zuri's chest, and she fell completely apart. This tiny, perfect human. Dark skin like hers, Dante's delicate features, eyes that would probably be hazel when they lost their newborn blue. "She's perfect," Dante breathed, tears streaming down his face unashamedly. "Look at her. Look at what we made." "She has your nose," Zuri said through her own tears. "She has your strength." He traced their daughter's tiny fingers. "What should we call her?" They discussed names for weeks. Korean names, Nigerian names, English names. Nothing had felt right until now. "Amara," Zuri said softly. "It means grace in Igbo, and Seoyeon for her middle name, so she knows both her worlds." "Amara Soyeon Chen." Dante tested it, smiled. "It's perfect. She's perfect. You're perfect." The first weeks home were chaos. Amara had opinions about everything and wasn't afraid to share them at 3 a.m. Dante transformed from crime lord to devoted father, walking the floors at night, learning to change diapers without complaint, singing Korean lullabies in his terrible voice. "You're tone deaf," Zuri said one night at 4 a.m., watching him rock Amara. "She doesn't care. She loves me anyway." He looked up, his expression soft. "Just like her mother. Her mother is sleep-deprived and covered in baby spit-up. Her mother is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." He wasn't wrong about the love part. Despite the exhaustion, despite the chaos, Zuri had never been happier. 6 months after Amara's birth, Dante surprised Zuri with the wedding he'd promised. Not some massive society event, but an intimate ceremony in Jeju Island. Her mother flew in from Lagos, crying the entire ceremony. His friends from the organization stood as groomsmen, reformed criminals in designer suits. And Amara, dressed in traditional hanbok, stole the show by wailing through the vows. "I, Dante Chen, take you, Zuri Adeyemi, to be my lawfully wedded wife," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Not because my mother chose you, not because circumstances forced us together, but because you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Because you gave me a daughter I don't deserve. Because you love me despite knowing exactly who and what I am. I promise to spend every day being worthy of that love." Zuri's vows were equally tear-soaked. "I, Zuri Adeyemi, take you, Dante Chen, as my husband. Again. For real this time. Because you fought for us when I'd given up. Because you proved that love is stronger than manipulation. Because you're not perfect, but you're perfect for me. I choose you. Every day. Forever." When they kissed, Amara chose that moment to scream at maximum volume, making everyone laugh. "She's already protective," Dante murmured against Zuri's lips. She learned from her father. The reception was joyful, chaotic, full of love. Dante's mother had tried to come, sending elaborate apologies and gifts. He'd returned everything, unopened. Some betrayals couldn't be forgiven, not when they'd nearly cost him everything that mattered. 2 years later, Zuri stood in her expanded art studio, now an internationally recognized space for Afro-Asian artists. Her collections sold out within hours. Museums were calling. She'd built something real, something hers. Dante appeared in the doorway, Amara balanced on his hip. She was 2 now, bilingual, and absolutely certain she ruled the universe. "Ioma!" She reached for Zuri with chubby arms. "Appa says we have surprise." "Does he now?" Zuri took their daughter, catching Dante's secretive smile. "What surprise?" "Well," he said, moving closer. "I know you said 1 child was enough, that you weren't sure about more, but oh no." She looked at him suspiciously. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything. You did." His hand rested on her stomach with reverent certainty. "You're pregnant. About 8 weeks, if I'm calculating correctly. How could you possibly... You've been exhausted, nauseous in the mornings, your breasts are tender." At her shocked expression, he grinned. "I pay attention to your body, Jagia. Know it better than my own." She wanted to be annoyed by his certainty. Instead, she realized he was right. The signs had been there. She'd just been too busy to notice. "We're having another baby," she whispered. "We're having another baby." He pulled her and Amara into his arms carefully. "Our family keeps growing." "Baby," Amara clapped. "I want sister." "We'll see what we get," Dante laughed. "But yes, you're going to be a big sister. Think you can handle that?" "I protect baby, like Appa protect Ioma. That's my girl." 9 months later, they welcomed their son at sunrise. The delivery was easier this time, faster. When the doctor placed him on Zuri's chest, Dante wept openly again. "A son," he breathed. "We have a son." The baby had Zuri's features more prominently, fuller lips and nose, Dante's bone structure, another perfect blend of their worlds. They named him Taiwo Dante Chen. Taiwo meaning first to taste the world in Yoruba, a celebration of his Nigerian heritage. Dante for his father, Chen for his family. Amara was fascinated and slightly jealous of her baby brother. She touched him with exaggerated gentleness, mimicking her father's carefulness. "Baby small," she observed in Korean. "You were that small once," Zuri said, pulling her daughter close. "Now I big sister. I protect." "That's right." Dante sat with both children. "You're the big sister now. That's an important job." Life settled into beautiful chaos. 2 kids under 3, a thriving art career, Dante's businesses going increasingly legitimate. They were building something real, something lasting. 5 years after Dante found Zuri working at that club, they celebrated their actual 10th anniversary counting from their original forced wedding because, as Dante insisted, every moment counted, even the painful ones. Their penthouse was controlled chaos. Amara, now 7, was already showing artistic talent, always covered in paint. Taiwo, 5, was quieter, more analytical, clearly inheriting his father's strategic mind. And their youngest, 3-year-old Zara, was pure chaos in tiny human form. 3 kids, Zuri said, watching Dante referee a pillow fight while trying to answer business calls. "How did we end up with 3 kids? You're beautiful and I have 0 self-control around you." He ducked a flying pillow. "Also, we're apparently very fertile as a couple." She laughed, the sound filling their home. The boutique had expanded to 5 countries. Dante's empire was completely clean now. No blood money, no violence. They'd built something remarkable together. Do you ever regret it? Dante asked that night, after the kids were finally asleep. All the pain we went through to get here? Zuri considered it. The manipulation, the lies, the 6 months pregnant and alone, the fear, all the struggle. No, she said finally, because all of it led here. To us, to our family. I'd walk through fire again to get to this moment. So would I. He pulled her close on their balcony, overlooking the city that had witnessed their entire story. You're my miracle, Zuri, the impossible thing that saved me from becoming a complete monster. And you're mine, my dangerous man who turned out to be my fairy tale. They stood together as souls sparkled below, two people who'd been torn apart by lies and manipulation, who'd found a love that conquered everything thrown at them. Their journey had been anything but simple, but it had been theirs, and it had been worth every painful step. Thanks for watching, fam. If this story hit you in the feels, smash that like button and subscribe for more emotional roller coasters. Drop a comment telling me which part made you cry, because I know at least 3 moments got you. Share this with someone who needs to believe in second chances. We'll see you in the next story. Stay blessed.